Today's masterclass, the topic is mind, body, well-being. But today, particularly, we're going to actually start to talk about the connection between, we're going to go a little bit deeper in the connection between our physical bodies and our mental well-being. And in particular, that involves diving into the wisdom of having healthy connective tissue in our body. We'll also do a little bit of movement at the end. I have some very gentle yin and flow yoga practices for us. So, we're going to look at the ways in which our bodies hold memories and emotions and experiences, which ultimately shape our lives and shape our outlook. Our muscles, the fascia, our breath, these all reflect our inner world, but they also provide us with tools that can help us promote relaxation and balance within ourselves and a deeper understanding. So we'll just dive into this. It'll be a little bit of me sharing content, and then I'll ask you some questions, and we'll also have some free time in terms of if you have questions that you can ask, and I'll share if I know, but I may not necessarily know the answers. All right. Let's see. I saw your note, Lori. Thank you. So, our unconscious body is a reservoir of memories, emotions, the experiences, and this often lies beneath our conscious awareness. There is this intricate storage system that holds the imprints of our past joys, our past traumas, sensations we've experienced, and all of this influences our behaviors and our thoughts. It influences our attitudes. It even influences our physical responses to things. So, like, past unconscious memories influence our responses to sensations and feelings today. It influences our even how we respond to new experiences. So, unconscious, by the way, doesn't always mean bad. It just means we're not aware. And so, a big part of becoming well in our lives and feeling well involves having a rich inner life. And so when you hear people talk about this idea of, getting in touch with themselves or doing personal growth or personal development, a lot of what that means is coming into a closer relationship with that which is unconscious or unknown to them. And as you begin to come into relationship with these experiences, these memories, that comment on memories, just hold that for a second. I'll come back to it, but gosh, and as I said that, I sort of lost my train of thought. But all of these, as we come into relationship with ourselves through personal growth, through developing an inner life, we come to know the things that have been hidden from our own awareness, the things about ourselves. Sometimes people are afraid to get in there and explore this because we kind of have this whole, this idea of the mystery. Sometimes it scares people, and it doesn't need to. There is profound wisdom to be gained by by tapping into what is unconscious to you at this time. What's unconscious today later becomes conscious to you. And so this is a process of self-development and self-growth. But it takes dedication, and it takes a willingness to do the work. But anything that's really worth it requires work anyway. And human beings we're made for this. We're made for hard work. Um, so so I'll talk a little bit between these terms of conscious and unconscious, just a little bit, and then we're going to move into talking about the body and connective tissue. So these two are very connected. Um, a person with really, really healthy, vibrant, healthy connective tissue also has a healthy, vibrant mind. When our connective tissue gets really bunched up and very stuck, so is our mind and our emotions, because our mind and our emotions are very linked. So there's two people's work that I personally am very drawn to. There's a lot more researchers and people out there whose work around consciousness or conscious and unconscious is quite profound. But there's two people whose work I want to draw on today. And they are first Neville Goddard, and he was a prominent figure in the New Thought movement. And this was in the early 1900s. His work primarily emphasized the power of the conscious and the subconscious mind in shaping our reality. So according to him, the conscious mind is our rational, analytical part of our consciousness, and it interacts with the external world. So the part of us that's probably present right now is this conscious, analytical, rational aspect of our consciousness. This is the part that sets intentions. This is also the part that sets or recognizes our desires. A big part of his work resides in helping people, one, really take ownership of their desires. And I hope to come back to that in a minute. Taking ownership of our desires. So sometimes, we have desires that are both positive, beneficial, and then we have desires that are more geared towards meeting unmet needs, but sometimes in a thwarted way. So as an example, when I was a kid, I used to always fantasize that I would break my arm or break my leg. And I fantasized that this would happen because I wanted attention. I wanted my mom's attention. I wanted my friend, I wanted, my classmates at school, I wanted their compassion. And so I would fantasize this terrible thing happening to me so that I would get this. That's an example of a thwarted sort of intention. It's based on a need for belonging and a need for security, but it's quite misguided, right? So when Neville talks about, become aware of our desires, it's important that we look at this piece, like what are we desiring? And if it's thwarted, we want to straighten that out because while you might not, like me, while you might not be envisioning breaking your leg so that you can get some attention from your mom, you might instead be fantasizing about something else. And it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily get that something else, but it does mean that we're attracting sort of this idea that something bad has to happen in order for us to get our needs met. And he really argues for this idea that we don't have to do it that way. We can sort of take a more direct route. So desiring a mother's love or desiring someone's love, we sort of picture that, but without having to create a drama for that to happen. I'm not going to go too far down Goddard's work, but I highly recommend it for anybody that is interested in spiritual ideals. His work is very very geared towards sort of the spiritual aspect. So So in contrast to Goddard, though, um, the subconscious mind. Okay, so in contrast to Goddard's idea of the conscious mind, there is the subconscious mind. And you'll hear me, this isn't scientifically accurate, but you'll hear me go back and forth between subconscious and unconscious mind. I mean the same thing here. And for those of you that are science minded, please excuse my discrepancy of language. I'm just going to sort of bounce back and forth between the two. So the subconscious mind is the deeper, more powerful aspect of our consciousness, and this works behind the scenes to manifest our desires. Goddard specifically believed that our thoughts and our beliefs, when impressed upon our subconscious, has the ability to shape our reality, creating our experiences and our circumstances. So I'm going to shift gears now and go a little bit towards more of a modern day scientist. This is Ian McGilchrist, and I believe he's from Scotland. He's a neuroscientist and a psychiatrist, and he's known for his work on the divided brain. And he really holds the idea that he's a really, really well-respected researcher, that the left hemisphere of the brain, like Goddard, tends to be associated with more masculine qualities, analytical thinking, logic, language, while the right hemisphere is associated with the more feminine qualities like intuition, creativity, and holistic perception. So McGilchrist argues that in the modern world, with our emphasis on the left brain masculine orientation, it's led to an imbalance that has resulted in negative consequences of our well-being, both personally and socially. So the interesting thing is, when we look at Goddard's work, he talks about how sort of the unconscious or subconscious mind is never demanding, but always responds. Always provides sort of the imprint. There's the unconscious will sort of imprint and on us, or it is imprinted on us, and then that becomes the reality that we sort of unconsciously create. McGilchrist sort of has a similar idea in the sense of the feminine aspect, the intuitive, is never demanding. In fact, if you hear people when they talk about their intuitive voice or intuitive knowing, oftentimes people say that it is not demanding. It's not. That's one of the ways we know the difference between somebody that might have a schizoid or schizophrenic diagnosis and somebody that's referring to one of the ways. There's many others. And somebody that might have, that might actually be really tapping in and be very intuitive. And that is that the intuitive voice is very, very subtle, very, very gentle. So when we look at these perspectives, there are some interesting connections. Goddard's teachings, the conscious mind with its analytical and goal-oriented nature, aligns more with what is traditionally considered the masculine. And it's the part that sets clear intentions and it takes action to achieve them. I do a lot of work with people in my private work where we actually spend a good deal of time cultivating an awakening of an inner vision long before we even start working on goals or clear intentions. And this is because personally I think that a lot of times people set goals that are disconnected from their inner self. And so even though they may achieve a lot, they feel very dissatisfied because it's not connected to a true inner vision. And that connection with the inner vision, that's about connecting to that inner feminine, or to that intuition. So this interplay between these energies, whether it's our individual psyches or in society at large, it's complex and it's dynamic. Goddard and McGilchrist both encourage us to recognize the aspects of our consciousness, both, because we need both. We have both, we need both. But the key is to make sure that we make space and we allow for both. Both sort of the feminine or the subconscious, and also the conscious or the more masculine. And they remind us that harnessing the power of our conscious mind to set these clear intentions, combined with the receptive and creative qualities of our subconscious, can lead to a more harmonious and fulfilled life. This is a way of feeling more whole, essentially. We talk about healing, we're talking about finding wholeness. We're talking about creating wholeness. So I've just dropped a lot of big information, a lot of ideas, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, or perhaps has anybody thought about these ideas before? What do you think about this idea of your subconscious life? Does that ring true for you? Do you have a subconscious life? Are you in touch with that aspect? Would anybody like to share? All right, I see we've got a full room. I'm really glad you're all here. Thank you for showing up for a conversation. So what does this have to do with healthy connective tissue in the body? Well, typically a body that is well stretched and well worked is more integrated. I don't know about you guys, but I often have this experience of if I get too focused on desk work, maybe I'm working on a writing project or I'm working on something. If I sit at my desk, it only takes a few days before my body, which I dance and I do stretching and I exercise. I'm doing movement. I work in the garden. I do this every single day. But if I take a break for 3 days, I suddenly find myself cramped up. I find myself moody. I find myself thinking more negatively, like starting to think the sky is falling. And it happens very quickly. And there's this Gabrielle Roth. She was the founder of the 5 Rhythms, which is an ecstatic dance practice. She talks about this idea of our minds follow our bodies. So if you want to heal your mind, if you want to heal your emotions, you have to get your body into motion. I see your hand, Rachel. Do you have a comment or question?
So I recognize that I came in late, but I heard you say that what does connective tissue have to do with that, or healthy connective tissue have to do with the healthy mind and body? I think I heard you saying that individuals who don't have healthy connective tissue tend to be less integrated. Am I restating that correctly?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my mind is blown because, without sharing too much, and you know that I'm not integrated at all. And I also, that is the goal in therapy, is to become more integrated. And I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. So that is really interesting to me. And I was in a group, a support group that I go to for individuals who have identified as traumagenic systems or multiplicity, called multifaceted journeys. And the individual who facilitates those groups mentioned that it seems like a lot of individuals who carry a diagnosis of DID or who identify as traumagenic systems have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I have been thinking to myself that that sounds like a really interesting deep dive for research. And I'm shocked, and my mind is literally blown to hear you say that. And I'm really grateful that I jumped in, and I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, wow. That's awesome, Rachel. Thank you for sharing. I'm trying to but I've realized my screen has frozen, so I can't jump over into the chat either. Um, yeah, it's incredible. And I would really love to hear the results of your deep dive into that. That would be very interesting.
I don't know where to start. I haven't gone anywhere there yet, other than just having that be like this little tiny light or something ignited in my brain. I don't even know where to begin, but there's a seed there that I feel like needs to be planted and looked into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, I would start just with that simple question that you started with to begin that journey. I'm gonna continue to go forward. Oh yeah, Catherine. I can't see your full name because my screen is frozen.
Kathleen, yeah,
Kathleen. Okay, go ahead.
it's Kathleen. Um, yeah, I was going to say something that I put my hand down. I have been I'm not in a space right now to fully be able to be present, but I am so interested in what you are saying, and that really upsets me at the moment. I wish that I could record what you're saying and listen to it later. This is really important and to me, but I have been struggling today, and so it is really hard for me to focus, and that just stinks. I mean, that's just my problem. But uh yeah, I don't know. I wish that that's all. I'm sorry. That's why I put my hand down.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Kathleen. This is actually a recorded room, so the master classes are recorded and will be available on Spotify. So it takes a few
Oh, that's
days.
awesome.
Yeah, so it takes a few days before it goes live, but you will be able to find this if you want to come back to it in a few days. So healthy connective tissue, particularly fascia. So fascia is, if you're not familiar, you can imagine that it's kind of like we have this, almost like this netting under our skin that covers all of our muscles. And this net, it to me, it looks like it kind of reminds me of like spider web netting, or like how it's Halloween time now. A lot of a lot of people use sort of that decorative spider web stuff. It's like that, but it's wrapped around our body completely, and that's fascia. And that fascia, it's really interesting. It plays a significant role in influencing our mood and our mind um, through multiple interconnected mechanisms. Fascia is it's a very complex network of these sort of collagenous fibers, and those fibers envelop and connect our muscles, our organs, and other structures. And so essentially, this fascia connects everything in our body. I mean, everything. This is the thing about our bodies and our minds that's so amazing is everything is so interconnected. It's like a massive superhighway of interconnection within our beingness. And so these old ideas of like, compartmentalized, our medicine system is still backwards. I mean, it's still behind the times in terms of like recognizing, we're not segmented beings. We are like whole, inclusive beings. Like, and this network inside of us is so interconnected. Um, so when fascia is healthy and supple, it allows for optimal movement and flexibility, right? Like we can move really well. A lot of us, as we get older, we start to notice we have limited mobility, limited flexibility. That usually actually happens because as we get older, we actually move less and less and less. A lot of times it happens through our careers. We get into a work position where we might be positioned at a desk. If we're sitting at a desk for 5 to 8 to 10 hours a day, that is going to have some real serious repercussions for us, mind and body. Um, so this thing about fascia, when we reduce our movement, so here's the thing that's so fascinating about all of this, right? Psychology and trauma healing and all of this sometimes can feel so complicated. It's like, you know, how many years do I got to spend in psychotherapy before I can like feel okay? Well, psychotherapy isn't the only path. It's definitely really helpful, but it's not the only way. And I think it's important that we remember the body is essential to include in our recovery, in our healing journey. Um, when this fascia is like so healthy fibers, they kind of so unhealthy. Let me start with unhealthy. When we have gotten into reduced movement, um, part of what happens is that these fibers in this fascia, they become like overgrown, like a garden. You know how your garden, like I don't know about you guys, but my garden right now is a little crazy. I had to spend some time over the weekend kind of cleaning things up because everything just went on a massive growth spurt, and there was so much stuff out there, and I hadn't had time to tend to it. And that's what happens to our fibers. They grow and they become messy and disorganized when we're not having regular movement. When we have healthy tissue, it's organized like a lattice kind of meshwork. So it's like healthy tissue is organized, it slides easily, like the tissue slides easily over each other. The tissues stretch, and the tissues slide past each other really smoothly. But when it's not healthy, when it's when it's messy and it's disorganized, the tissues like grab together and they stick together, and it kind of goes off in all these different directions, and it actually causes pain sometimes. And this whole connective tissue thing for me got awakened years ago when I thought I had a serious muscular problem happening in my hips, and I went and saw a really great massage therapist, and she said, no, it's just your connective tissue. She's like, you don't have any muscle. There's no muscle problems going on. It's just your connective tissue is really bunched up. And so there's actually massage that you can get. There's myofascial massage, and there's fascia massage, which feels phenomenal, by the way, that can really help. A lot of times, massage and stretching are two excellent practices. When you find yourself in a slump or in a rut or just not feeling well, a massage or deep stretch, like an hour-long stretch session, can do wonders to massively shift you and to shift how you're feeling, to shift your emotions. And part of it is because it's such a regenerative experience. The yeah, I feel like I'm jumping ahead, so I'm going to try to slow myself down a second. So coming back to sort of the fascia when it gets all tangled and overgrown, it creates these like really sticky knots, and those sticky knots, they lead to reduced movement and pain. It's fascia is extremely sensitive, and lack of movement, even over a short amount of time, can cause that messiness to start to happen. The messiness and the overgrowth. We need to have the right amount of growth of fibers within our bodies. Overgrowth becomes problematic. It creates a sort of a rigidness, and rigidness often, rigidness often creates pain and discomfort. If your body is feeling rigid, your mind very likely is probably on edge. The people that I know that deal with the most physical pain, they also are the people that I know that are the most on edge emotionally. Tendency to sort of snap at people and be mean and aggressive. When you talk to these people and you kind of find out what's going on, they're actually experiencing an incredible amount of physical pain. So our fascia is incredibly rich in sensory receptors, and this is why it's so important in body awareness. There's this term, it's called proprioception. I don't think it's a big deal to know that, but it's your body's ability to perceive its position in space. When our fascia is healthy, it enhances our body awareness. Those of you that were on the call with me a few weeks ago, we did an exercise that involved having an awareness of feeling the gravity of your body and feeling the energy field around you. That was an exercise in body awareness. So having this heightened awareness of your body can promote mindfulness, and it can help reduce stress, and it also improves mental clarity. We have a tendency to be distracted, even unconsciously. If there's discomfort in your body, it tends to distract our mind. Many of you have probably experienced going and getting body work done, and experiencing sort of the release of emotional tension or trauma. When fascia becomes tight or knotted due to stress, emotional stress, or trauma, when you release the physical tensions through like massage or myofascial release or yoga, it can trigger emotional release, which is what is needed. Like we need that emotional release, and that helps provide a relief from our emotional burdens. And so it's coming back to this idea that I mentioned at the beginning of the call. We talked about conscious and unconscious, or conscious and subconscious. Again, when we're working with the body, there can be, as I said at the beginning of the call, there can be stored unconscious memories in your body. And maybe you work with a practitioner and they're working on a part of your body. It might be like, on your abdomen, or it could be on your chest. And for a reason unknown to you, you suddenly feel this flush of emotion and memories that maybe don't even make sense. And they might not actually be true memories per se. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it's the emotional release that's happening. By true memories, I mean like, did the thing that you're seeing, did that actually happen that way? And that's less important than the actual release, the emotional release. I think something to yeah. Just slow myself down again. A lot of times, back pain can be related to fascia not sliding properly because it's sort of knotted up. Again, I keep referencing when we are sitting too often or we're at a desk too often, we start to feel a little pain. That very likely could be because the fascia is bunching up. Um, so, again, too little movement, and this fascia becomes rigid and thick, and that results in, or it can result in the compression of nerves and muscles, which then reduces blood flow and water flow and nutrient flow to your connective tissue. And our fascia is made up of about 70% of water or moisture. And that's what helps it to be able to move smoothly. So when we talk about why, this rigidity, this stuckness, a big part of that is because we've got moisture and we've got nutrients and blood flow. We've got it all sort of limited, and we need that. And so, um, so again, so massage and movement is what can help establish. It helps replace that moisture. It helps open those pathways so that the moisture can flow more easily amongst the fibers. All right, gosh, I didn't realize how quickly. Uh, can anybody in the room, have you ever noticed physical sensations or tension in your body that has been linked to specific emotions or memories? Can you share? Yeah, Sheila, go ahead.
Wow. Yes, I can share. I have, unfortunately, the way I found this app was because I was desperately looking for support coming out of, for the first time in my life, a very abusive. It's it was emotionally and unfortunately physical. This person's been arrested, and now there's a whole court thing, which brings more stress. And when I met him, my body, I was in elite athlete condition. In my 50s, I love always dance and working out, and took really good care of my body because I just always have been interested in that. I don't know Dr. Mercola, if you're familiar with him. I think he's a bit controversial now, but he talked a lot about fascia and the body. And anyways, it was just really interesting to me is that as I experienced all this negative, extremely, extremely negative mental, like gaslighting and mental kind of abuse. And then, like I said, there was, I was hurt also. I just started feeling like, oh my God, I would say to my mom, like, I feel like my face is falling out, falling off my bones. I felt like I was starting to add collagen to my smoothies. I could feel it. I didn't understand what it was. So, it's kind of interesting to me that the connection between the fascia and just I don't know, maybe just the reaction that you have to somebody who is doing things to you where you feel like you have to disassociate. It was very, very, I mean, it was extreme, more like, so it just, in order to carry on, I kind of had to like separate from reality. Yes. And it was horrible. And, but I was also physically hurt in the end. He did, I let, I mean, it, I mean, I was, it just, I was actually going to a fitness type of like juicing camp, and it was a lot of I was staying actually in the place that was farthest away from the main campus, and I had to ride a bike and get there, and I was kind of already hurt. And without getting into much gory detail, I mean, he took a heavy flashlight and hit both of my ankles, to which made it very difficult for me to work out and get to where I needed to go. And honestly, there was so much other pain in my body that I didn't even notice it until someone pointed it out to me, one of the nurses at the facility, and she's just like, what's wrong with your ankle? And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how bad it was, and I just think that this just totally makes sense. When I got after August 20th, when there was like an assault and battery.
Sheila, can I ask you to wrap up your comment? We've got 9 minutes left, and I still have some more that I want to do with you all.
Yes, of course. There was just this huge inflammation response, and I didn't understand it, and I almost felt like it was in my head. That's it. And now I think I understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. I would highly recommend looking into healing touch as a way to help, particularly on your ankles, but any part of your body that experienced assault, as a beginning or as a part of your healing regime, is gentle healing touch from a practitioner, either certified in healing touch, or even an energy worker, such as somebody trained in Reiki. Something about fascia in particular. So, if we're dealing with the experiences of diminishment or abuse or demoralization or anything like that, anything that's going to make sort of diminish us, make us smaller, or hurt us in some way, there is a dual thing that's happening. There's a limitation of our physical movement that's beginning to happen. And as a person begins to kind of protectively move inward in that sort of like closing in on their bodies, right? That's a self-protection movement. We're gonna move in. Well, our connective tissue is also moving in that same way. And typically, when we're hurt in those ways, we kind of get frozen there. We get frozen there because we're trying to be safe. We're trying to be okay. But what's happening with our connective tissue is it's growing and growing and growing, which is helping to hold us in that closed, collapsed position. And so when we begin to do therapy, if you do somatic therapy, if you do massage therapy, if you start getting into yoga or dance, you're challenging what has developed. And as you begin to challenge it, that this is where, when we say, the body is helping to heal the mind, so the mind has kind of gotten, just as the body started to fold in over itself in a protective stance because of what had happened, the mind did as well. You might notice a person when we're sort of in that collapsed place, we have a tendency to look downward, or as Sheila gave us the example, or to completely disassociate, leave the body. And to be a whole, alive human being, we need to be present in our body as much as possible. Okay, we've got about 6 minutes left, and I really want to make sure that I provide just a little bit of some yoga for you today. But I also noticed that, Nyla, you had your hand up for quite a long time, and I wanted to check in and see if you still wanted to share, and if you could, keep it quite short.
Well, I know you had an activity or something, so I can hold my comments. Thank you, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're going to do, let's see. I really wanted to do yin yoga with you guys tonight, a few, but we don't have the time for that. So we're going to do, okay. We're going to do a very, very simple, just basic yoga flow. So if you're able to, wherever you are, I would recommend moving to a floor in your house that's carpeted or maybe has a mat or something on it. But you'll need a soft ground. And I have 5 poses prepared for us. We'll see if we can do all of those or not. But I'd like to invite you to come. We're going to start in what's known as child's pose. And if you're already familiar with this, you can go ahead and bring yourself into this position. You start with your hands and your knees on the floor in a tabletop position. So kind of like you're crawling. Basically begin in that position. You bring your big toes together and your knees apart, creating space for your belly to rest in between. And then you just sit back on your heels and extend your arms forward, allowing your forehead to rest on the floor. And even if you're not able to do this exercise, you can imagine it in your mind. Breathe deeply and relax into this very gentle stretch. It's good to inhale through your nose. You can exhale either through your nose or through your mouth. Coming up to that tabletop position that we started in. You've got your wrists under your shoulders and your knees are under your hips, again in that sort of crawl position. And now inhale and arch your back like a cat. Lift your tailbone. And then exhale and round your spine. Tuck your chin into your chest. And then just flow between these 2 stretches for a few cycles. You want to sync your breath with each movement. So on the inhale, doesn't matter which one you're doing, but you're either in the position of arching your back, lifting your tailbone, or rounding your spine and tucking your chin. This is really good because it helps to bring blood flow into your spinal column. The cerebral spinal fluid does not doesn't have its own pumps, so I'm told. And so it's twists and turns that help to move that spinal fluid up through the spine and into the brain, not into the brain, but this is important. There's a lot of chemicals, good chemicals in your body get transported through this substance. So now from the tabletop position, tuck your toes under and lift your hips. Straighten your legs to form an inverted V shape. Press your palms firmly into the mat. Just let your head relax between your arms. And again, just continue to breathe as wholly and as completely as you can on each inhale and each exhale. Now, as you feel ready to step your feet forward to meet your hands at the front of your mat. And at this point, you might want to just allow yourself to, you want to have a slight bend in your knees and just kind of let yourself hang there for a moment. Continuing to breathe, let your head hang and relax your neck. And just allow your spine to lengthen. And in particular, your spine will, on each of your exhales, it'll naturally lengthen on its own. And now, in preparing to rise up to standing position, one vertebrae at a time, have your stand with your feet hip width apart, your toes pointing forward, and you want to engage your core, and you want to engage your legs. And then you're going to very gently roll up into the standing position, one vertebrae at a time, but you are using your legs to push this up, not your back. And as you roll all the way up, keep your shoulders relaxed and allow them to sort of roll back as you reach the top. And then extend your arms down by your sides with your palms facing forward. Just allow your body to adapt to the movement that you just did. Breath is a good way for allowing for that adaptation. Grounding yourself as you stand there, feeling the energy flow from your toes all the way to the crown of your head. Gentle flow yoga is really good for relaxation and flexibility and for calming your mind. You always want to move at your own pace. And you can use your breath to focus. All right. So we have come to the close of our session today. And I would like to open the room up. Would anybody like to share maybe a couple of words about what that experience was like for you? All right. Well, I've got to open up the gratitude room next. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And I hope to see you again next week. I've only got maybe 2 or 3 of these groups left of the Mind Body Journey. So definitely show up if you are interested. I'd love to have you in the room again. All right, take care, everybody.